Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody out there today? Praying all is well. All is well. This is Dr. Audrea Winbush Lott coming to you for just a few moments to just share some encouragement, some wisdom, some nuggets, some insight, some moments of transparency about this topic called growing pains. Growing pains. So, if you could please do me a favor, and wherever you are, whatever platform you're watching me on, can you please share the broadcast? And if you're watching a replay, that's fine too. Make sure that you share it. Let someone get a peep at this that you think might find it beneficial. We're talking about growing pains, growing pains. All right. Welcome, Instagram. Good to see you. So now we have Instagram and YouTube. And what I will do from this point forward, moving forward, at various times during this broadcast, I will make sure that I'm sharing some information on some other platforms. But I'm not going to try to do a lot of live streams on various streams because I keep running into some glitches and I don't want any glitches today. I want to be able to do this in an undistracted manner and just spend some time sharing and sharing from a personal point of view, as well as from a biblical point of view, as well as from a practical point of view. Because one of the things that I always like to make sure that I do when I do come on live is to not just throw things at you and hope that you'll catch them, but I try to present things in a way prayerfully that you'll be able to grasp them and make the practical applications as they apply to you. And I understand that everything that I say does not apply to everybody that watches. And that's one thing that I need you to realize as well. Even as you watch this broadcast, you may say, okay, I hear what that sister's saying, but it's just not quite ringing true with me. And that's okay. I was sharing with someone earlier today some information, trying to share some wisdom. And I made it a point to say that I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not trying to give you some instructions that you need to just follow point by point. I'm presenting this information and you need to decipher, you need to discern, you need to weigh, you need to make sure that you use wisdom and applying it to your situation and see if it does. And then ask God to give you the, the desire as well as the ability to walk out whatever needs to be walked out in that situation. So that's the same way that I come when I'm on these broadcasts. I don't come sitting as I'm some sort of expert by any means, but I truly believe and am always encouraging people to understand that your story, your experiences are beneficial to someone else. And the things that you've experienced, the things that you have gone through. Hey, Miss T, how you doing? The things that you have gone through, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, but even sometimes, especially the ones where we might not have made the right decisions, or we might have been in situations that we really wish we didn't have to deal with. What did you learn from it? What did you glean from it? And how can someone else learn from what you learned? How can someone else learn from your situation? How can someone else be encouraged by your situation? The fact that you're still standing, breathing, functioning, able to do the things that you do is a testimony in and of itself, because some of us have been through some things that were really orchestrated to take us out of the game altogether. But instead, it gave us almost it increased our fortitude and it increased our determined, dogmatic, stance that, I'm going to make it through this. And I'm not going to just slide by. I'm coming through. I'm going to cross that finish line, with a fierceness, because I know that I've reached that point that I need to reach. And now I'm ready for the next stage, the next phase. Okay. So again, we're talking about growing pains. And, when I say the word growing pains, those of us, some of us may remember having to experienced some growing pains when we were growing up. And sometimes we might have run to our parents, or if we could run, depending on what kind of pain it was. And just, I'm hurting, my leg is hurting. My arm is hurting, or I got pain in my muscles. What is it? What is it? And I'm looking at a definition here on the Mayo Clinic site that says growing pains are often described as an ache or throb in the legs, often in the front of the thighs, the calves, or behind the knees. Growing pains tend to affect both legs and occur at night and may even wake a child from sleep. Although these pains are called growing pains, there's no evidence that growth hurts. So they've not been, it's like they know it exists. They've had enough people experience it, describe it, and even some of you watching can probably relate to the term itself. It's saying also that there's no specific treatment for growing pains. You can make your child more comfortable by putting a warm heating pad on the sore muscles and massaging them. And so they're saying that there's no treatment. You just have to deal with the symptom. You have to take care of the symptom while you still endure the process. There's nothing that you can do to stop that growth in that child. There's nothing our parents could do to stop the pain, to stop it from happening. It's just something that happens. And there is nothing that can be done to offset or to cause those pains to disappear. You just deal with it, make it through that episode, and go on to the next time. Let me see what else it says. It says, see a doctor if you're concerned about your child's leg pain or the pain is persistent, still present in the morning, severe enough to interfere with your child's normal activities, located in the joints, associated with an injury, or accompanied by other signs or symptoms such as swelling, redness, tenderness, fever, limping, rash, loss of appetite, weakness, or fatigue. And it's saying that the cause of growing pains is unknown, but there's no evidence that a child's growth is painful. They don't usually happen where growth is occurring or during rapid times of rapid growth. It's been suggested that growing pains may be likened to restless legs syndrome, but muscle pain at night from overuse during the day is thought to be most likely the cause. And overuse from activities such as running, climbing, jumping can be hard on a child's musculoskeletal system. Growing pains are common in preschool and school-age children. They're slightly more common in girls than boys. Running, climbing, or jumping during the day might increase the risk of leg pain at night. Now, what I just read you was from the Mayo Clinic site. And really what I just read you said what? They don't know what it is. They don't have a symptom. I mean, they don't have a cure. They don't have a treatment. And even when it's talking about when you should see a doctor, it's basically saying if these other things accompany it, well, that's evidence that there's some other problems other than just the growing pains. But when a child experiences growing pains, when you may have experienced growing pains, you could have been relaxed in your bed, asleep, and all of a sudden you're hurting. And you're letting your parents know that you're hurting. And your parents don't really know what to do. They're saying, and they tell you, oh, baby, that's all right. It's just growing pains. It's just growing pains. You know, those muscles are stretching. You know, your body's adjusting. It's just growing pains, just growing pains. But what about, excuse my voice, you all. It's amazing how, excuse me, and that was one reason why there was a delay on me going live today. It's amazing how these symptoms, upper respiratory, tend to try to show up when it's time for me to go online and go live. Same thing happened last week, but you know what? I'm not moved by that. And if you're not moved by it, we good, okay? But it's amazing how these growing pains can occur. But what about when you're having growing pains that have nothing to do with what's anything that's going on in your body physically? What about the growing pains that you can experience at any age, at any stage, at any juncture in your life? We all are going through growing pains at one point or another. Sometimes those growing pains are much more severe than at other times. So what do you do at that time? Okay, so now you're saying, okay, you spent all that time reading off the Mayo Clinic site and their definition of growing pains. You've established the fact that, they don't really know what causes it. There's no medical evidence that there is a cause. You just treat the symptom, possibly with a warm towel or warm, pad or something, and to soothe the discomfort, and just tell the child go back to sleep. They don't know what's going on. So why are you talking about that? And now you're talking about adults possibly having growing pains, because we do go through seasons where we feel a pain that is so severe, or we're experiencing a discomfort that is so severe. And even when we try to describe it to people who are closest to us, they cannot always grasp it. They can't always grasp the importance of you being able to describe and get them to understand that how severe the pain is, how much the pain is, because how bad the pain is, because on the outside we look fine. Just like when a child is having growing pains, that child looks fine. There is no evidence that there is any disfigurement or distortion, in their body. They looking fine. We look fine when we're going through these growing pains, but because we're uniquely wired, and because the situations that we're dealing with that are having certain effects on us, we're experiencing some growing pains. Now we can experience growing pains, or we can decide we're going to bail and just jump ship and just try to avoid what's going on. But then at some point in our lives, we usually have to revisit that and go through the process. And eventually, if we stick it out, we can experience some growth. What are some examples of growing pains? What about when you've been believing God for something for such a long time, and it hasn't manifested, and you're seeing things happen all around you for other people, and they're getting blessed here, they're getting blessed there, and then you want to say, but God, what about me? God, what about me? What about growing pains when you know that God has made a promise to you about something that is to occur? You know that it's a specific thing, and you're in a season where not only has it not occurred, not only has it not manifested, but you're feeling like you're some kind of new version of the invisible man or the invisible woman. Not only are you not walking in what it is that you said that God said you would walk in, but moreover, you're overlooked, you're underused, you're underutilized, you're discounted, you're not even counted at all. It's as if you're walking around with a cloak of invisibility. Those are growing pains. What about the times when you're in situations where you're being challenged to exercise self-control, to not say what you want to say, to not retaliate, to not come back at, not clap back at, not do whatever, to whatever that antagonistic situation is calling for? Those are growing pains as you learn how to take on the character of Christ, and not like wimpy. Oh, here, hit this cheek. Hit this cheek. Oh, hit this one again. Oh, you got another? No, not that way, but to exercise and walk in the things that He has laid out for us, and how we deal with these certain situations. Those are growing pains. We're not going to get to the place that is promised to us without going through some things to get to that place. We're not going to walk in the blessings that God has for us unless we go through some things to get to that place. The enemy isn't going to stand back and fold his arms and say, oh, well, I'm not going to mess with her because God promised her this. So, I know she's going to get it. So I'm just not going to get in her way. No, he's going to throw up roadblocks, ambushments, derailments, detours, delays, disappointment, despair, sadness, all kinds of things he's going to present to us that we can accept during that time, or we can cast those things aside, endure the hardness as a good soldier, and walk through it. Growing pains. I remember there's several situations, and I've shared a lot of them on different live sessions that I've done either by myself or with my husband. And one of the ones is I remember being in a situation where I was on a job, and I was working in a hospital, and I had this co-worker who just suddenly, unexpectedly passed away. She had what seemed like a bad cold, and it didn't get any better. She ended up going to the doctor and ultimately in the hospital, and then she contracted an infection, some sort of sepsis infection, and she passed away unexpectedly. Left 3 or 4 children and a husband, and so here I am in the office, and I'm doing her job and my job, which is, it's what you do. But in the process of finding someone to come and to be in that office with me, my boss had given me the task of scouting out the land, going down to HR, trying to get some information, see who we could bring up to interview. And, I helped him with that process. And there's this particular young lady that I did recommend, and she got the job. But guess what? She got the job being my supervisor, but I had to train her. Growing pains. When I tell you growing pains, so the part in me that knows right from wrong. Number one, was experiencing the disappointment, the pain, the anxiety, the anger, all of that. I had to really. That was I was in my early 20s. So that was during a period of time when I got the opportunity to really grow, probably supernaturally and ahead of time. So I had to take on the right attitude. I had to go about things in a way that usually somebody my age at that time would not have done. And I taught her what she needed to do, showed her what she needed to know. And she ended up with that job and with the salary, that I thought was due me. And those were growing pains because I had to trust God, because no matter what was going on, whether it was right or wrong, I had to still display the character of Christ. I had to still walk in a posture or take a stance, knowing that God was my source, the job was my resource, and that there was nobody that was going to be able to deny me whatever God had promised me or whatever God had for me. And so if he already knew this was going to happen, then this must be a test for me. And I need to still operate in love and not show anger or resentment, all those things. That was a time of growing pains. On top of that, I was probably a walking, talking hormonal hurricane because I was very pregnant at the time. So I had the opportunity to either be angry or bitter, or to look at it as a situation of me experiencing some growing pains. Now, of course, I didn't attach that term to it at the time. These are the things that, as God had me meditating on this topic, he began to show me the different times in my life where I went through situations that weren't fair, but they ended up being opportunities for my faith to grow, for my witness to become stronger through word and deed, and also for my expectation and my trust in him to grow, because he carried me through that. He gave me what I needed in order to be able to make it through that situation, make it through that season. So subsequently, one of the things that God did do, though, he did exercise much mercy towards me, in that the coworker who had passed away shared the same office with me. Well, God spared me having to look face to face, with that person day in and day out. And I got me an office space down the hall, which turned out to be even better for me, because here I was, not always feeling the best, trying to make it through, this pregnancy and first time pregnancy, and with a lot of headaches and all of the things that go with it. So I could either look at what happened as being something that was devastating, or I can look at it as something that God already knew that was going to happen, and he was setting me up to get a blessing in the midst of it. So there are things that are going to happen that are not fair. There are things that are going to happen that are not right. There are things that are going to happen that are going to be, just totally mind-boggling. But you can look at those things and keep going down the list of what's wrong, what's not right, what you hate, what you like, what you don't like, all about it. Or you can say, Lord, Is this another growing pain? Am I being stretched? Is that muscle being stretched? Is my spirit man growing in such a way that my spiritual muscles are experiencing a few aches and pains that might be waking me up in the middle of the night or disturbing my sleep, or making me feel uncomfortable when I walk, and walk as in spiritual walk, sleep as in, well, we might be too relaxed and not diligent, not vigilant, not always alert, not always looking at things through the lenses that God would have us to look to those things. So growing pains, those are growing pains. If you're going through the growing pains, why spend time being negative? Why spend time complaining? Why spend time comparing your life to somebody else's life? They didn't have to deal with this, and they did all this X, Y, and Z, and they didn't even get punished for it. All I did was this, or I didn't do anything, and why is this happening to me? Again, the enemy is not going to stand back and fold his arms and call of his little cohorts off of you. They've been dispatched to do damage. They've been dispatched to steal, kill, and destroy. They've been dispatched to do all these things to pull you off your course, to pull you off your faith, to have you have things come out of your mouth that you shouldn't have come out of your mouth. I'm not necessarily even talking about yelling, cursing, screaming, being ugly to somebody. I'm talking about words other than words of faith. We need to, during these times of growing pains, that's when we're being squeezed. And when we're being squeezed, what's in us is what's going to come out. And so when I'm being squeezed, are words of faith coming out of my mouth, are words of praise and adoration of God, trusting you no matter what, even though I don't understand, don't have a clue about what's going on. What's coming out of your mouth? Growing pains, growing pains. That person on your job. I've had situations where, my goodness, I wanted to say, Lord, are you kidding me? The things that people can say or can do, the things that can come against you on a job, and you want to say something, you want to retaliate, you want to, like, many times you feel like you need to defend yourself. They can't treat me like this. Why are they doing that? They want to do all of these things to you, and you're trying to just hold your peace. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Those are growing pains. Those are opportunities to really and truly walk in the things of God in a way that you never thought you'd be able to walk in. That's the time you get to hold your peace. That's the time you get to let God arise so the enemy can be scattered. All of these different things can be happening at the same time. I'm trying to share this on another thing, and then also my phone was ringing, but amen and hallelujah. But there were times when in a situation on my job, two different times that I can think of right now, where my supervisors, when I tell you they would ride me like I was some kind of ride at the fair, my goodness, it was just unreal. So I had the opportunity to clap back. I had the opportunity to retaliate, but I didn't. But it wasn't anything that I can boast of in and of myself. It's what God had allowed me to do, what God had enabled me to do, what God was walking me through, because I was experiencing what? Growing pains. Anytime you're going through these situations where you're having these growing pains, remember, when a child is going through growing pains, coming out on the other side of those growing pains, their body is stronger, their body is more suited, more fit. It's not going through changes. And I often think about too, like when a woman conceives, and as that baby grows within her uterus, the stretching, the changing, sometimes even before a mother can feel that baby kick and punch and do the jumping jacks and do the running man and all that stuff in there's a twitching and a stretching and a pulling that might be taking place, that you can feel the pressure of the body conforming and being formed in a different way in order to accommodate that baby that she's carrying. So what you should understand is, when you're in these situations, stop looking at it as the devil out to get me, or I don't know why they don't like me, they need to just back off. They don't know me. No, They don't know you, but you know Jesus and Jesus knows you. God knew you would be there in that situation before you ever got to that situation. So if you trust him the way you say you do, if you love him the way you say you do, you'll realize, aha, this is another opportunity for me to work my way through these growing pains. And Lord, how would you have me handle it? Lord, what do you want me to do? And many times he's going to ask you to do a hard thing. One of the things will be slow to speak, quick to hear. I mean, quick. Yeah, slow to speak, quick to hear, and slow to wrath. Listen more than you talk. Be very careful, be very slow about becoming angry, because the enemy likes to punch buttons, and he knows what triggers to push so that he can get us to blow up, or get us to mess up our witness, or to put negative words out in the atmosphere so that it even delays even further our blessing that's on the way, or the things that we know are going to come to pass. We just shot down all of our agents that are at work, agents as in angels who are at work, hearkening, listening to the voice of God so they can go and do his bidding. Then I let something come out of my mouth that is the opposite of that, and then it takes it all the way back to square one. We don't want to do that. We need to be mindful of that. So if you're in that situation, being, quote, tried by a coworker or a supervisor, you have the opportunity to experience those growing pains and to come out on the other side stronger and wiser and better. In each of the two situations about which I'm thinking, I had to really dig in deep, not within my own strength, but ask God to show me how to grow. God had to grow me up. He had to let me see things even differently. I had to treat people nice when I didn't want to treat people nice. There's some scriptures in the Bible that sometimes we want to ask God, why did you put those in there? Why can I just rip those out? Can I just blot them out? Can I just delete them? But that's why he tells us, pray for those who despitefully use you, who do all manner of evil against you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for people, bless them, do nice things as far as they're concerned. What does that do? That helps me endure the growing pains. That's like taking that nice warm towel and putting it on that leg that's aching, that leg that child is telling you is hurting, that is as a result of those growing pains. It soothes you. And at the same time, it is putting something else in the atmosphere so that God can go to work on not just on your behalf, but on that is antagonizing you, that is treating you wrong, that is mistreating you, that is lying on you, that is stealing from you, that's doing all of those different things. You're praying for those people, and that keeps the anger and the bitterness from taking root in your heart. Anger can turn into bitterness, and it can grow a root, and that root can go deep. And many times it's hard to get to the bottom of it, the source, the root of the root, in order to get it out. So that's why we get to go through the growing pains with ease. That's our warm towel we put on that aching muscle, and it helps us as well as it helps the other person. And the person doesn't always know that. I had an opportunity in one situation where I could have just stood back with my arms folded and just watched that sister go down. Holy Spirit said, no, let her know what's going on so she won't be blindsided. And I wanted to tell God, what the what? And what the what wasn't even a phrase back then. But looking back, that's what I would have wanted to say. And he said, no, warn her. Don't let her be blindsided. Treat her the way you would want to be treated. Let her know about this plot that's been stacked up against her and how the enemy's coming in after her. And I could not figure out, why would I even want to do that? Why would I want to tell her that? This lady was treating me so wrong that it was obvious to everybody in the office. She would just be nasty to me, ugly to me for no reason. And she got a kick out of it because she was the office manager, and I had another position and some other people had some other positions, but it was so obvious. But guess what? I did what God told me to do. And that was a powerful witness to her. Her mouth flew open, her jaw dropped. She could not believe coming to let her know that someone had gone to HR. They had all their little paperwork, all their little ducks in a row, and they were coming for her. They were coming at her fast and hard with evidence. And the Lord let me warn her. And so that was a lesson for her. It was sometimes we've been in situations where we ain't quite right. We're not doing everything the way we're supposed to necessarily. And like I know, there have been times where God's mercy stepped in and handled the situation, took care of us, and we didn't receive what we should have received. We did not get what was coming to us, which we deserved. But his mercy kicked in, and he offsets, he softens the blow, or he diverts the situation altogether. So I get an opportunity, a witness. I had an opportunity to walk in the things of God, but I would not have been able to do that had I not been listening and paying attention and obeying the instruction that God was giving me throughout that whole process. You understand? If I had just been going to God complaining and not listening to see what he would want me to do, so he had me treat her the way I would want to be treated. And from that point on, it's like I couldn't get rid of her. I mean, but it was only because I had shown her the love of Christ. And then the other situation that I'm thinking of where I experienced some growing pains, I'm in a situation, I've got a classroom full of children who the role changes from day to day. The kids come, the roster of what I'm saying when I say role, the roster of kids may change from one day to the next, and you never know. And these are not necessarily the children who were the cream of the crop coming into us from these other schools. In a situation like that you have a team that's working together, that we presenting a united front, that that the kids know that we're together, that they can't play us against each other, and that we're there for them and we're there to help them. But I had a supervisor who her actions were so obvious that even the students would ask me, Miss Lott, why is she talking to you like that? Miss Lott, why is she treating you like that? Oh, Miss Lott, she shouldn't be talking to you like that. You want me to get her? And I would say, no, it's okay. I said, I don't understand why. And guess what God showed me to do in that situation? Talk about growing pains, because I'm a grown woman. I'm older than she is. I had more experience in what I was doing than she had. She wasn't even in the classroom with the kids, but would come in and disrupt the class and change this and change that, or not let me do things that I normally would do. And she would talk down to me in a certain way. But I was in the midst of me experiencing those growing pains. I had the opportunity to not only continue to treat her the way I would want to be treated, but to use it as a learning experience for those students. And so God had me flip it. He showed me how to do it. Because we have to be careful when we're around children too. We can say, well, don't do that, and when this happens, don't do that. But those are just words that are falling flat. But when they can see it walked out in front of them, now did I raise my hand and volunteer to be the one to help walk that out in front of them? No. But when the opportunity presented itself, what the enemy presented to me for evil, God allowed us to flip it over for good. And I was able to explain to the kids, this is what we're talking about. You have to manage your anger. Many times you can be justifiably angry. You can justifiably say certain things, do certain things, but you're going to be in situations in life where that's not going to work for you. You can't be on a job and just your supervisor or even to your coworker and think that there aren't going to be any consequences. So we were able to show them this is how we do it. And in addition to that, kids have a way of knowing, even though we don't get to, crude and, share the gospel openly with students. But students can always tell which teachers are the ones who, are walking with God and have that character of God. And so they would make comments about, oh, Miss Lott, you a real church lady. You a real one. You a real one. But that's something they won't ever forget. They'll see mistreating my teacher, and my teacher did not say anything negative or derogatory, not only to the supervisor, but even when she would leave the room. We wouldn't even let them hear us discussing it among ourselves as adults, because even my coworkers couldn't understand it again. So in the midst of it, does it feel good when you're going through growing pains? No. But what happens when you go through the growing pains? You grow from it. You gain wisdom. You gain insight. It helps mold and kind of tweak your character. And you have the opportunity, as I'm having now, to be able to pinpoint some relatable situations that you can share with other people as an indication, as an example, as proof that God will walk you through any situation that you're in. God's principles and his laws and his expectations of us aren't so way up there, so spiritual, that they can't be applied to my everyday situation. What am I saying? When that person steps to you and tries you, God's got an answer for that. When they're not treating you right on your job, God has an answer for that. He has an answer for that, and he doesn't necessarily, well, he not, I don't mean to say it like that. He knows that most of the time we're not going to want to do it. It's not going to be in us to do it. It's going to be the opposite of what we feel. But he also knows that during these times of growing pains, that those of us who are willing to say, Lord, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about you. If we're willing to say, not my will, but your will be done, he can take that situation and he can get glory out of that situation. And that's the other piece to going through the growing pains. The growing pains are not going to shine a light back on you. The growing pains are going to direct people's attention towards the one who's in you. Direct your attention towards God. Uh, One of the things that I find is very, very useful and has been very helpful for me over the years, even in witnessing to whether it be non-believers or young believers, or just people who are still working on some things in certain areas. And when they see you going through certain things, when people have seen me go through certain things, I'm able to be very real with them, because I want you to understand, just because you're going through growing pains, just because God has given you the things that you need to say or do, in that situation, just because God has it outlined in his word about how we should treat people who mistreat us, what we should think, how we should pray, how we should be, quick to hear, slow to speak and slow to wrath. Um, um, we need to, did I say it right? Quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. That's right. I got to make sure, because I don't want anybody misquoting me. In other words, listen hard, speak less, and really don't end up pushing things in a certain way that you're getting so angry that you portion. So it's not that he knows that those things are easy for us, but he knows that if we're willing to do that, we create actually a platform for him to be showcased. I wasn't showcased. I'm never the one showcased. But if I carry myself in the right way, he will be showcased. As I said, those students, they won't ever forget that. They would, when I tell you, they would say, Miss Lott, why she talk to you like that? Miss Lott, why she treat you like that? And I there's so many things that I could say justifiably so, because the kids aren't dumb. They see, they hear, they understand, they know. But I had the opportunity to walk that character of Christ out in front of them. They won't forget that. Those co-workers I had way back in the day, and I'm telling you, that was when, let's see, I was, like I said, early 20s, like 22, 23 years old. When I'm in my early 20s and I'm having the opportunity to walk these things out in front of this young lady who was not a believer, in front of these other people who worked at the hospital who knew what happened. And it was a witness. It helped strengthen what they knew or what they had been exposed to concerning this is how Christian operates. So it's never about us. And as I shared with someone earlier today who's dealing with, it's a very explosive situation. It's like borderline explosive. If one person missteps, it's gonna all be over. And so I was able to share with that person that is we have to cop out. Is not just a cliche. It's not just something people say to tell you, oh, just calm down and get over it. But we do have to remember that everything, every discomfort, every pain that we're experiencing, Jesus himself has experienced it. And especially when it comes to being mistreated, when it comes to your character being assassinated, when it comes to people lying about you, when it comes to about comes to people plotting against you, when it comes to people speaking evil about the good that you're doing, and the heart that you have to see something good take place in the lives of others. When it comes to all of those things, Jesus experienced it firsthand, and he showed us exactly what we need to do in those situations. And there were two things that stand out to me. And one is that in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he knew what he was going to face, when he knew what he was going to endure from that point on, leading to up to the cross, his death on the cross, he said, I really don't want to do this. Can this cup pass from me? Can I kind of skip, or I'm good. I don't need that. I don't need, he said, but nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. I don't want it. I ain't feeling it. I'm not even trying to roll like that. But I already know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And even though it's painful, uncomfortable, there's nothing appealing, enticing or inspiring for me about this. I'm going to do it because it pleases you. So many times we hold our tongue. We put our character in check. We conduct ourselves in ways that are opposite of how we're really feeling on the inside, just because it's going to make God look good, just because it's going to bring glory to him. But even in that, that's a testimony, because what I was about to say is, when you're with people, you're able to tell them, I really don't want to do this. I really feel like doing that. I'm really hurt. I'm really concerned. I'm really distressed. I'm really distraught. But talking me through this. This is what I'm going to do, because God has given me the strength to do that. In and of myself, I can't forgive these people. In and of myself, I can't treat them the way I want to be treated. In and of myself, I cannot continually walk in forgiveness and walk in love. But because of the God who lives in me, my God who lives in me, I'm able to do those things. So that was one of the things that I shared, with that person today, is that you have to just release it and understand that God, he not only knows where you are, but Jesus knows specifically, from having experienced it personally when he walked the earth as a man. And then the other part to that is that by laying it all down and not allowing it to get the best of me, I'm not picking up unnecessary weight. I'm not giving place to the devil. I'm not about to step off a ledge and lose what God has for me. Because many times when these things are mounted up like this and coming against you like that, you're right on the brink. You're right on the edge. And I was able to show this person that, look, stand back at the big picture. If you retaliate, even with words only, you stand to lose this, and this. And the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and destroy. He's not going to tell you, oh, in the midst of this situation, these are growing pains. And if you decide that you don't want to deal with the growing pains, just choose what's behind door A, door B, or door C. He's not going to dress it up like that. He's going to come and say, child, you better not let them talk to you like that. Oh, you're going to let them give him a raise and not you a raise? Oh, why are you the one that has to do all the work? Oh, you're going to let him lie about you and you're not going to say anything? That's how he will come at you. He's not going to tell you that you're about to lose all of these things. And some of these things may be those promises that we talked about earlier that seemingly are slow in coming, haven't come yet, look like they're never going to get there. You might be right there at the door and you end up getting snatched because you give in to your emotions and your feelings. So keep those things in mind. Growing pains can wake you up in the middle of the night. Growing pains can hit you at an unexpected time. Growing pains can stretch you and cause you to be uncomfortable. Growing pains many times can only be soothed and eased, temporarily, because you never know when they're going to pop up. But operating in and walking in and consistently striving to follow the heart of God in these situations can be that nice warm towel that's applied to that muscle that's aching, to that leg that's hurting, to that joint that's feeling uncomfortable, to deal with the symptoms at the time that you're walking through to the place that God has for you. When David was faced with the lion, and then he was faced with the bear. God came through each time. So when he faced Goliath, he knew, oh, those growing pains, I had to learn that I had to trust God and not me, because I know it was only you that helped me kill a lion. I know it was only you that helped me kill the bear. I know it's only you that's going to help me knock this giant flat on his face, right? So what you've gone through, what you've been through, are examples of how God got you through growing pains in the past, and he'll get you through the growing pains in the future. Now, one of the things that, as I get ready to close, that you have to be mindful of, especially as you mature in the faith, and you might even have leadership positions, or even when you don't realize that people are looking to you for answers, even though you might not ever meet them, they might not have the same thing you, but they're watching to see how you walk. When you're going through those growing pains, it's very, very, very important that you carry yourself in a way that's reflecting the glory back to God. You might not understand, especially if you've endured things and you've come out triumphantly, and you've been even able to teach and preach or mentor people in certain areas. And even if we're not talking about dealing with church, but on the job or the community or whatever, and it looks like that whatever that is that you know is coming is taking a long time. People watch your journey. People watch how you walk till you get to that situation. So let your walk be one that screams loudly of the character of God. The promises of God are like you're wrapped in them, and you're walking in his promise. And even when things are coming against you, you still are operating in a way that, oh, that person knows God. Oh, that person, boy, they're really going through it, because you really are teaching them how to go through those seasons of growing pains themselves. And those of you who are in leadership, who are maybe pastoring churches, and there's some shifting that's going on, there's some changes that are going on, there's some ideologies or some practices that are not wrong, but God is challenging you to put them aside and to pick up something that's more in tune, more in line with what he has for your group over which you shepherd, to walk in. Don't be afraid to go through these seasons of growing pains, because there are people who have been positioned in places where they're waiting. It's kind of like being, I guess, if you're waiting to go on stage, you're being in the green room. Or I grew up going to rodeos, because they had a rodeo twice a year in my hometown. And when those cowboys would be on those horses waiting to go out for their opportunity to try to rope or whatever it was they were trying to do, who are waiting, there are people who are positioned, who are waiting for that shift to take place, so that the stall can be open, or they can be led from the green room to the stage, for the season, for the time, for the assignment that God has for them. So don't be afraid to emerge from what you have known, to walk into what you know is true, you know is God, but you're thinking people aren't ready for it. But God has people in place who are ready to come alongside you to help you execute, carry out those plans. And at the same time, the people who are already there, who may not be familiar with, may not be up to speed on some of the things that are about to be put in place, God's grace is there. Holy Spirit knew they were going to be there. Everything they need is going to be there for them. They will be able to grow supernaturally. It's going to be one of those situations where even if they're seeing it, they're hearing it, they're experiencing it, and they don't have a clue about what's going on, because of Holy Spirit in them, they'll know it's God, and their minds will be able to catch up with what's going on around them later, but they'll know that it's God, and they won't shun it, they won't resist it, because more than anything, they'll be drawn to it. They've never experienced it, they've never walked in it before, they've never seen it done like this, but they'll know that it's God. And it'll be a place that it'll be a situation where everybody involved is actually involved in growing pains. You as leaders are being involved. You're going through the growing pains. the people who have been there alongside you all the time, they're going through growing pains. And yes, you will lose some of them, but even that God already knew. You know, their season may be up. It might be time for them to go off on a different path. But many of them, God really has groomed them and set them alongside you, so that as you enter into this next season, they'll be able to go right along with you, and they'll be able to learn from you. They're watching you to see what you do and how you react. And as you continue to take these moments, these pockets of time, and use them as teachable moments to pour into them, to share with them, so they'll know what it is that's going on, it's really going to be awesome. Your obedience and your vulnerability, to be way out there, you know, seemingly, and trusting God all the way, is speaking volumes to people, no matter what level, what faith level they're on. Even if they're like unbelievers still peering in the window, they're seeing something that's different. They're seeing the childlike faith that's being walked out, that's being that's unfolding in front of them, and you're showing them how to trust God. So growing pains happen to us at all levels, and we have to understand that, even though, as we read at the beginning of this session, Mayo Clinic has this nice definition of growing pains, and really the bottom line is, when you're reading, it's just a bunch of fluff. They really can't explain growing pains. But we know on a spiritual side, when we're going through seasons and pockets, our faith is being stretched. You know, what does the word say? Let patience have her perfect work. Continue to endure hardness as a good soldier. All of these different scriptures point to the fact that there are going to be seasons, there are going to be pockets, there are going to be opportunities where you can jump ship, or you can stick it out and you can grow, you can get stronger, you can develop the muscle, the stamina, get your whole body in sync, as it were, so that you can walk into those things that God has for you. Amen. So I pray that this has been helpful as we've talked about growing pains. My computer was freezing up in front of me, so I hope I didn't lose some people. I see one of my mentors on Instagram. I'm not sure if she's still there now or not, because she is such a busy lady, but I love her dearly. That's Dr. Sarah Hurd. It's important, no matter what season that you're in, that you have someone that is willing to speak into your life and encourage you and let you know, that everything is okay, that you're going to make it, that they can see that you're really striving to do what God would have you to do. If you don't have that person in your life, ask God to send that person. But I'm saying that because Dr. Sarah Hurd is one of those people who consistently speaks into my life, and I appreciate it. And I'm so grateful for technology, because it has just negated the importance of, or even the factor of there being distance, several I'm not sure how many miles between us, but a 5-hour drive by car between us, because we can connect at any time. And that as I close, how many closings is that? Make sure that even during your time of growing pains, that you, even in the midst of your pain, you're pouring into somebody else's life, because that is a witness as well. Again, it could be even from the standpoint of sharing what you're dealing with and how it's affecting you, but giving God the glory that's due him, and letting that person know, yeah, you see me going through this, and no, I don't like it, and yes, it's uncomfortable, but because of the God that's in me, I'm going to make it. So you will know that when you go through X, Y, Z, when it's your turn to go through certain things, the same God that's helping me get through this is the same one that's going to help you get through that. And the bottom line is, no matter how severe the growing pains get, how bad those growing pains get, I know that I'm going to endure hardness as a good soldier. I know I'm going to endure the race to the end. And I know that I'm going to be rescued from this, and I'll move on to the next assignment. Amen. All right. I love you. God bless you. I pray that it's a blessing to you. Inbox me if you have any further questions or concerns. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because what I'm doing now is trying to schedule the live sessions ahead of time. And so you can actually see what's coming up, and you can set a reminder and know to kind of be on the lookout. She's gonna go live. She says 11:30. It might be 11:40, but she's coming. But you'll know what days and times. So those of you who join us on a regular basis on Wednesday nights, we'll look for you tomorrow night, 10:30 ish. For the Bible study, the word plunge Bible study, where we do the Sunday school lesson on a Wednesday night. Those days are probably going to change eventually, but right now we still are set for Wednesday. And tomorrow night's lesson is actually talking about God creates heavens and earth. And the devotional reading for that is Psalm 33, verses 1 through 9. And the background scripture is Genesis 1 through 13. Psalm 33, 1 through 9, Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 13. So I hope we'll see you then. And check my YouTube channel. I know I have a more so a motivation broadcast scheduled for Thursday. And then, of course, on Saturday, it'll be time for First Saturdays with Audrea. So I'll be looking for you to let me know that you're here. Most of the broadcasts are going to be done primarily on YouTube. And usually what I end up doing is doing YouTube and Instagram now. But anyway, I love you. God bless you. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Have a great rest of the day. Growing pains.